held between senior Al-Qaeda members planning the 9/11 attacks and other attacks. Two of the 9/11 hijackers attended. On January 14th, the dot-com bubble peaks as the Dow Jones closes at a record high 11,722. And on January 26th, Rage Against the Machine performs on Wall Street in New York, and it results in an early close of the trading day due to the size of the crowd.
Sweet.
Yeah. I'm surprised. I don't remember that.
I don't remember the moment
the
it
powers
happened.
that be,
Yeah.
the powers that be must have successfully erased that from cultural history.
It's out there somewhere, like in some music video forms, I think, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I'll have to look around because I remember seeing it, but I don't remember when and hearing about it happening.
No. A couple of celebrities born in January of 2000. American rapper Ice Spice. You ever wonder if she wants to change her name now?
Yeah, to Ice Recruitment, maybe.
Yeah,
would be a good name for her.
Yeah, USBP Spice, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The old classic joke. There we go. Yeah. Also born in January 2000, NBA star Tyler Herro.
Oh yes, the white boy for the Miami Heat. He's got a nice shot going on. Yeah, he's good.
Died in January of 2000. Unsung hero to teenagers everywhere, the inventor of Clearasil, Ivan Combe.
Oh.
And also actress Hedy Lamarr.
That's Headley?
Is it Hedy or Headley?
I'm just quoting Blazing Saddles. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's been too long since I've seen Blazing Saddles. Actress Hedy Lamarr, most famous for being in the 1949 religious epic Samson and Delilah, and also Bob Hope's spy spoof movie My Favorite Spy. But did you know that on her off time, Hedy Lamarr was also a very successful inventor?
No.
So despite no formal training, she designed and drafted things like an improved version of stoplights that was put into use, and the tablet that dissolves into water that gives a drink carbonation, or that can give a drink carbonation. I'm sure they do it differently now.
Wow.
She was also one half of a duo that invented a mechanism for frequency hopping radio signals during World War II, which allowed Allied forces to prevent signal jamming on their radios and radio-guided bombs. And forms of that same technology are still used today in both military and civilian applications. One of them I read was like professional RC, like planes, boats, and cars will use the tech, so you can drive more than like however much the radio band limits you to without messing each other up.
Got it. Okay, that's wild. Cool.
Yeah.
Hedy Lamarr of all people. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is one other January 2000 event that I want to delve into a little deeper. In November of 1999, are you seeing the notes here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So in November of 1999, there was a ship carrying Cuban refugees that sank while on its way to Florida. Most of the passengers died, but a young boy named Elian Gonzalez, age 6, survived, and he was found by fishermen holding onto an inflatable inner tube. He was later picked up by the U.S. Coast Guard and brought to the USA. He's granted temporary permission to stay in the U.S. with his great uncle's family in Miami. But his father, who had remained in Cuba, sued for custody of Elian. And on January 12th of the year 2000, Attorney General Janet Reno, remember Janet Reno? Attorney General Janet Reno.
Absolutely.
There you go. She ruled that he should be returned to his father. So that decision ended up leading to an armed raid by U.S. Border Patrol on the great uncle's house by more than 130 agents, including a tactical SWAT team who entered the home and ended up creating the infamous photo of a armed federal agent taking Elian away. You know, he's crying in the picture, taking him away from the family that lived in that house. And I mostly wanted to mention it to just say how insane and how far we've come from, like, you know, I have conscious memories of that whole thing. Like that one picture of that happening one time, like, caused enough of a national outrage that a lot of people say, like, you know, it definitely had effects in, you know, political effects on the presidential election in Florida. And of course, Florida in the 2000 presidential election had a pretty infamous history of its own. Basically deciding the race in what a lot of people believe are, you know, less than up, and, you know, it was not on the not really on the up and up the way it was figured out. But just the difference between that one picture of that happening one time causing that much outrage and where we live now, where US Border Patrol is out every hour of the day doing shit like this. And yeah, I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to I don't really know what I'm trying to say other than,
well, I think what you're saying is, you know, it, in a sense, it's become an everyday normalized occurrence. You know, and I think that's true. And I also look at it though and say, like, you know, for anybody that thinks this sort of mentality is new, it's definitely not. You know, maybe it wasn't coming from as much of a point of hate and racism then, as much as just, you know, kind of legal mumbo jumbo, send it back home. You know, whereas now it's definitely under a bit of a different, you know, umbrella.
Yeah, and it's not to say that I mean, obviously there's a ton of everyday people who still feel the same, you know, anger and disgust with, you know, the treatment of, you know, people who come here primarily just to live and work. Like, I don't think it you don't need to think about it too deeply to realize that, you know, you don't you don't go through the ordeal of the average immigrant, either legal or otherwise, coming into this country for reasons that would include anything about hating this country. Like, that's just, it's on its face, it's insane. Like, you don't have to explain that. Like, just think about it for 5 seconds. Anybody espousing that is just fooling themselves into thinking and saying something really dumb. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's mostly what I wanted to say about it. Like,
yeah,
that just what a crazy difference between then and now. But yeah. I think, I forget if I finished the thought, but I think your average person still has the same feeling that led to people being angry about that. So, you know, it's more everybody in an official capacity and working with this particular admin who are out of the norm and who have traveled that far from that, you know, that time to now.
Yeah,
and I mean, and it's a bummer.
You know, I think there's still some instances where, like, the immigration questions, you know, do make headlines, you know, when things are done. How am I trying to put this delicately? When things are maybe not done on the level, but at the same time, you know, it's, to your point, like, this is a photo that's like historic, you know, Time magazine, whatever a magazine is, you know, that kind of defines, you know, a whole thing. If we took a photo of every time this happened now, we wouldn't have enough magazines and websites to, you know, cover it with. It's just so, like, it's such a everyday thing now, unfortunately, in this country. I mean, maybe not 130 agents and all the camera crews and everything like that, because it was definitely a spectacle too. But yeah, just that was a tough one, you know. And at the end of the day, you just feel bad for the kid in that situation.
Yeah, I did read that he, as I was looking at the article on that, I did read that he grew up to be part of like he was like a Cuban elected official or something like that, or, you know, he grew up he grew up and had an okay life. So at least there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Hey.
Speaking of political turmoil and anger, let's return to Exterminator by Primal Scream. So Helio, tell us a little bit about this album itself on the list's history.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting you didn't talk too much about, like, the goings-ons in the UK. Kind of socially, politically, a lot of similarities to what was going on here. where things became a little bit more police state-ish, a little bit more surveillance, a lot more corporations and kind of ruling things. We saw that transition, or at least the lack of transparency there start to be a little more obvious. So Bobby Gillespie, in talking to The Guardian in 2000, said, as he approached this album, we still think of ourselves as a punk band because that's where we started from. But the anger is more to do with writing about what we see. And what we see is people being betrayed, being dumped on by a government that was meant to be an alternative to Toryism, but is simply a continuation of it. If there's a lot of anger on this record, it's the anger of the betrayed.
And interestingly,
like,
that same sort of maybe it's maybe it's okay that we didn't talk too much about what was up at the UK at the time, because now we've got space to talk about what he says there. The left-leaning government was supposed to be an alternative to Toryism, but is simply a continuation of it. That's sort of a concern that a lot of people are going through right now, with the UK Labour Party was kind of, once again, they were elected as supposed to be an alternative to the right wing in the UK, but something that's happening now is they seem to be very preoccupied with a lot of the things that right wing parties in the US and the UK are preoccupied with themselves, namely the abuse and discrimination against trans people.
And when this is going on too in the 2000s, like you said, the Labour Party was meant to be kind of the left leaning, that there's a better way party, and they weren't socialist per se, but there was a lot of socialist ideas that they had brought to be kind of looking after the people in the UK, and they started kind of selling themselves out just to keep the votes up, to keep in office, to look out for their jobs, as opposed to trying to uphold the causes and actually like create a government for the people. So there was a lot of resentment brewing with the working class and the people that were affected by these things. So party's going to evolve over time, we know that, but definitely sad to see how it kind of burned out rather quickly on its ideas that it was built on. So as far as personnel go for this album, it was definitely a pretty large group. It was recorded over a year. It took a bit of time to put together, and Bobby's kind of mental approach to it was the idea that he wanted it to be like a network of underground communications, for like revolutionaries reaching out to each other by radio or by digital, whatever the means he was envisioning at the time. But the idea being that like there's all these people with different sounds, different ideas coming together, under this unifying thing of, hey, this is a shitty time. We need to do something to speak up and share our anger and everything. So it was recorded a little bit in Brooklyn at Trout Recording, a little bit at David Holmes' studio in Belfast called The Bunker, where they actually recorded a couple albums, and then a little bit in Los Angeles at Woody Jackson's studio. So as far as people go, you touched on, Manny, Gary Mounfeld, was on bass. They had brought in Kevin Shields, for My Bloody Valentine, who still hadn't even done a follow-up to the big shoegaze genre-changing record. He was still just kind of doing whatever in his time and having fun, and he had worked with them on that EP you said prior, and at this point he was kind of a fixture with the group. They also had Andrew Innes on guitar, Robert Young, Martin Duffy was on keyboards, Darren Mooney on actual drums. They had maintained the relationship with Andrew Weatherall, who was working on more of like the electronic side of things, a lot of beats, a lot of tape noise. Here's one, Dan Nakamura, Dan the Automator, was a contributor on the song Pills. Bernard Summer from New Order worked on one of the later songs of the album, Shoot Speed Kill Light, one of my favorites. And then Jags Cooner and Chemical Brothers, both of them contributed drum programming, synth, club vibe, worked on some remix of the song.